Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Back to School with Maz Jobrani. Today, I've got an old friend of mine on here. His name is Bassem Youssef, Dr. Bassem Youssef from Egypt. They used to call him the Jon Stewart of Egypt. Now he's living in America. He is here to talk to us about the Egyptian revolution. He's here to tell us about why it's important to make fun of your leaders. And he's here to tell us how veganism can cure many, many diseases, but not baldness. So there's hope, but not for all the bald people. Let's go back to school with Maz Jobrani. Maz Jobrani, hey, Jobrani Maz, oh, Maz Jobrani, hey, Jobrani. Mazzy, oh, Maz, hey. I got a podcast, oh, back to school, yeah. All right, guys, we are back. Thank you for watching, listening to another episode of Back to School with Maz Jobrani. Right off the bat, I just want to encourage you, please, if you're enjoying our show, make sure to go to iTunes, give us multiple ratings, give us a good review. A lot of you have already done it. I hope more of you do it. Go to Spotify, do the same thing. Go to YouTube, wherever you're watching it, do that. And also post it on your social media. The more people listen, the more people watch, the more we can bring this stuff to you, bring you these amazing guests. So please, please, please spread the word of Back to School with Maz Jobrani. I'm back today with my co-hosts, Caitlin, Tehran. How are you guys?
Hey. I'm excited about today's show.
Today's exciting, right? Because I have been in a revolution. Of course, I was a kid, the Iranian Revolution, 79. So I don't remember much of it. I wasn't in the streets protesting or anything. But the country went through the revolution. I've always been interested in learning about the revolution of Iran. And so I am someone who's intrigued by that stuff. And now, Tehran, you grew up as an Iranian American, basically. Was the revolution part of your upbringing? Was that conversation at your house ever?
I think that in every Iranian house, the revolution is very much a part of life.
Right.
As if it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
It comes up. It's part of the everyday politics. It's a conversation. And here's the thing. Growing up in an Iranian and black household, revolution was a daily occurrence.
Right.
I mean, I went to the Million Man March when I was a kid in D.C. That was something that I went and experienced. And that's the closest I've been to a revolution.
So you had it in your household. Caitlin, were you?
Oh, every day we were talking about it. No.
White people were like, we're just happy.
Like, oh, that's true. Yeah.
No, but you come
that
from
would be cool if you were a 6-year-old and you were like, let's take to the streets.
But that's the thing. I was like, my family was pretty well off. We weren't in the streets, but regardless, there was conversations at the house about like, oh, what's going on in Iran? When can we go back?
Every day. It's every day.
Yeah.
But now you come from a pretty liberal family. Were they, throughout your childhood, ever saying to you, hey, honey, look at, people that are oppressed or people that are leaving? Or was that never until like college? When did you first?
No, I think, I was the first president that I was aware of having was George W. Bush. Like, I was very anti-government and war and whatever. Like, I think that most of my classmates, we were in like the 3rd grade and I was like, fuck Bush or whatever.
But my question to you though was your family, forget about your classmates, your family, were they at all political, or was that not really?
I guess not really. Now my mom is.
Now.
No, yeah.
Everybody
Trump.
is now.
Everyone is
President
now.
Trump
Trump's really
has polarized
yeah.
the nation, but created a culture of politics that maybe didn't exist to this extent, at least in the United States.
Yeah, so what's interesting about Bassem, who's coming on the show, and he's going to tell us all about it, is he, as an adult, experienced the revolution in Egypt. There's actually a great documentary on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there or not. It was nominated for an Academy Award. Is it called The Square? The Square. The Square. If you guys get a chance, watch. It's called The Square, or just Google Tahrir Square, Tahrir. It is enthralling. It's amazing. They follow these guys that are actual revolutionaries. They're in the square. They're being killed. They're being arrested. There's all kinds of stuff. And Bassem was this surgeon, this doctor who, he's going to tell us a story. He went down to the square to help. And so it's amazing to know people, especially in this world that we live in America, which, sure, we go protest. There's the Million Man March. There's all this stuff. But this is like straight up stuff we're seeing in Hong Kong now, where people are like tear gas and shooting and all that stuff. I've never participated in that level of a protest.
I mean, I've never been a part of a protest. I don't, because we think of it as something that's a movie, as if it's not real.
Yeah.
But people really, lose their lives.
Yeah.
Let's not forget what happened, even in something small like the Green Revolution in Iran, which isn't small in action. I mean, small because it didn't actually implement exact change, but it started the conversation in many ways.
Yeah.
People lose their lives. That young girl, Neda, died.
Yeah, Agha Sultan. Yeah, there was people were being shot, and so it's interesting to have someone on our show that can talk to that, who can speak about being in that in the heat of it. So again, I think that's what's interesting in this episode, and I think people, when they listen, they will see. First of all, you realize how privileged we are to be living in America and not have revolutions every 30, 40 years. A lot of these countries have revolutions in, every 30, 40 years. I used to do a joke about how we take voting for granted in America, where people, we get like 50% voter turnout, and there's other people in other parts of the world. They go, oh, you get to choose your leader? In our country, every 30, 40 years, one leader kills another leader, becomes our leader.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's funny, but true. And I think that's why Bassem, who I've never actually met, this is my first time meeting him, went to comedy. He went into comedy because people don't realize how much comedy affects us.
Yeah. And it's a great way to criticize your leadership without having to go out and throw rocks.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so dangerous.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's get into the Bassem Youssef episode. Again, as always, people want to contact Caitlin. They go where?
At Y2Kate _
Fantastic. Tehran.
At I am Tehran all across the board. IAMTEHRAN.
For me, it's at Maz Jobrani all across the board. Let us know what you think of the show. Once again, let your friends know to listen, download, listen to us when you exercise, listen to us when you cook, listen to us when you make love. We're there with you. We are there with you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back to school with Maz Jobrani.
Back to school, yeah.
All right, Bassem Youssef.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yallah, Habib.
Allah, habibi.
Take it. How are you, man? How are you?
So happy to be
That
here,
was
man.
too much happiness.
How you doing? How you doing?
Too much happiness. That was a terrorist attack. I'm not really.
This is
call someone.
Bassem is like, he is you and I have our Middle Eastern backgrounds. We're happy people.
Yeah.
And he just showed that to the world.
Yes.
So when you see a Middle Easterner screaming, it's not all. Usually they're happy. They're celebrating something. They're not ready to blow.
So when there is an attack, they don't see it coming.
Yeah.
It's like, what? They were so happy.
Usually, Maz said he was happy. I don't understand.
No, I'm excited because Maz is. We know you say a lot of, he's like my brother. He is like my brother because there's not a single time that I would go to Maz and ask him for something, and he would always be there. It was the first time I saw Maz. It was in Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the pleasure to actually host that show. It was a comedy show in English to Egyptians. And I was the host of the show, and this was the first time I see him in person. And I was like fangirling over him. It's like, oh my God, Axis of Evil. I'm a big fan. I was like, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, you?
all right, I'm gonna tell you that story in a second. Bassem, now that you're on the show always starts with a question from my son. I gotta stay true to it. So here we go. This is Dara asking his question of Bassem Youssef. Here we go.
Who's Bassem Youssef?
Exactly. Here we go.
Hi, Dr. Youssef. I was wondering, what was your transition from being a doctor, a heart surgeon actually, to becoming a comedian from Egypt to America?
And the face. But the face.
That is a very good question.
Yeah,
I never asked this. I never got asked this question. No, I get asked this question the whole time.
And from Egypt to America. I like
know.
it. Yeah.
There's a couple of transitions here. So, yes, I was a doctor, a heart surgeon for 18 years of my life. And then 2011, I was ready to leave. I was going to Cleveland. I was accepted in a clinical fellowship there. But then the revolution happened, and my life changed forever. There was a revolution, but according to the state-run media, that was no revolution. That was a conspiracy. They were like basically spreading stuff that you're familiar with, fake news, rumors, conspiracy theories. And I got pissed. because I was there in the street. I saw what the revolution was.
You were in the street there because you went to help people that were being injured in the Tahrir Square and in the.
I couldn't throw stones, so I'm not confrontational. So I just stayed at the back end, and I was just fixing people's wounds like other doctors there.
And were they shooting at? Because a lot of people, America's got a short attention span, as you know, especially now with Trump, because he keeps overtaking the news cycle. So for those people that don't remember, in 2011 there was this revolution in Egypt. Hosni Mubarak had been the president forever. People go out in the streets. Everyone goes, "Oh my God, this is the Arab Spring revolution. Things are going to be good." But in the process of going to the protests, the government starts shooting, and
that's in the beginning. But that was overcome in the first day. Now what happened was you have for 18 days, the people are kind of sitting in Tahrir Square. And what does the government do? So the whole world is watching. So if they brought in the army or the police coming to try to kill them, that will not look good. So what they do? They hire thugs, they hire other people and tell them, go attack those people. So it will be as if the people wanting the president to stay, wanting to get rid of those horrible people who want chaos.
But they were hired.
Of course. They were paid, they were hired, and they went there and they started to, it was a street fight just using rocks and Molotov cocktails. There was no serious shooting as much. There was sporadic, there were snipers, but they couldn't be out there in the open. So we had all of these injuries of eyes and broken bones, and so this is what we did as doctors.
So you're sitting there as a doctor, you go, I got to go down and help.
Yes. There was a moment, by the way, that I wanted to feel revolutionary, so I wanted to go and pick up a rock and go throw it on the other side.
Wow.
And I kind of walked away from the makeshift clinic in the back of the square, so I went and walked and I picked up a stone, a little rock, and I said, and I kind of gathered my courage and I threw it, and it slipped, and it, instead of going an upwards trajectory, it hit the back of one of the people on our side. So I just and I was wearing a white coat, so nobody suspected that it was me. So I turned around and I went back.
That's hilarious. I wonder how many revolutionaries were discouraged by their inability to throw.
We have a mole back there. It's we have a traitor.
Hilarious.
So I kept to medicine. But what after everything was done and the president stepped down, I was reviewing the media on the stuff that was recorded on YouTube. I said we were basically being duped. Even my mom was calling us there were operatives and spies in the Tahrir Square. Leave. Even my parents believed that at the point. So I said I need to set the record straight. So I've always been a fan of Jon Stewart, and I thought, what would it be like to have the Daily Show version of it?
And you had never done any comedy,
nothing.
Plays. You're this doctor who goes, I want to be Jon Stewart.
No. Doctor is short selling. Heart surgeon, bro.
Surgeon.
Let me explain the difference.
Go.
You're going an extra 10 years after medical school. You're going through your fellowship to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. This is a lot of work. You're a heart surgeon here.
Yeah, doctor will be take some Advil and
compared to him, a
get some
doctor
rest.
is a chiropractor.
I mean, our dear general practitioners, all due your respect, but you are. Anyway, so no, they're great. But the thing is, I didn't have any experience. Only the jokes that we crack in the operating rooms, and the residents have to laugh.
Okay, so this is back to school. This is back to school.
Stage.
So we're looking for learning moments. Yeah. Learning moment number 1: just because you don't have experience in something doesn't mean you might not be able to do it and do it well.
Open heart surgery.
Open heart surgery.
Be careful because there's a lot of comedians, quote unquote, taking up that mic because of advice like that.
No, my point is, obviously, you are someone who's educated, you're someone who's a fan of something, and you see this, there's a void. You're sitting there in Egypt going, wait a minute, all the news, it basically, for people, Americans that might not get the idea, but all the news is Fox News. All the news is coming at you from whatever the government.
It's not like a private or a private corporation like Fox News, not owned by people. This is the government.
State-run
media. This is North Korea, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And so I started to do these. So now it is safe. The revolution apparently won. So now there's a new spirit. So I said, I'm going to do YouTube videos.
And Mubarak is gone now.
He's gone now.
Okay.
So now there's a void, and it's very fluid. It's the revolution, the Arab Spring, we won, But there has to... certain beef with the media. So I needed to set that straight. And I started to do these short YouTube videos, five minutes. It wasn't particularly good. It was not amazing now looking at it. But it was different and people needed it.
You just went on YouTube and were like, let me start a Bassem Youssef channel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put the camera here.
Yeah.
You had nobody there that was like...
Yeah, I thought like maybe like a few hundred people will watch. And maybe I will go to Cleveland, maybe come back, and maybe a producer will discover me a couple of years down the line.
Holy moly.
First day, 100,000 views. 5 weeks, we have now more than 7 million views. And there were people tuning in like crazy. And I said like, the reaction was just crazy. And suddenly, by the third week, I'm having offers to host my own show on television stations.
Oh my God.
And I did.
And Egypt is what, 80 million people?
100 million.
100 million. So again, for Americans who might not know about this, Egypt is a big country.
Yes.
And the difference between Egypt and here is in America, you've got whatever, 1,000 channels.
Yes.
Egypt, how many, wasn't there like just a handful of channels?
No, like, 12, 15 that people watch. And then I started the show, a very small version of the show in the first year. But by the second year, this is where it went off. I had a live stage. I have like live audience. And 40 million people were tuning in.
40 million people.
Every episode.
So whereas you try to be the Jon Stewart, they called you the Jon Stewart of Egypt. He was your hero. You look up to him. Daily Show has about, at the top, maybe 2 million viewers.
Yeah.
Wow.
You were getting 40 million.
40 million. He was getting NFL numbers. He was doing NFL.
You're on NFL numbers.
But here, because there's a lot of competition, you said like there's like 1,000 channels.
Yeah.
But there, it was the only thing. And people were tuning in. And half of the people who tune in to watch the show hated me. So it was mostly hate watching.
Publicity is good publicity.
Because whenever you make fun of authority, now after the revolution, these authority came into by either election or popular opinion. So people loved the Islamists, they loved the military, and they hated me for making fun of them. Because these are sacred, these are taboos. And you guys coming from the Middle East, especially Iran, you're very privileged. You know what's the cost to make fun of people in authority. And that actually starts, speaking about back to school, starts as an indoctrination from you being a little kid in the Middle East. You're not allowed to talk back to your parents. You're not allowed to talk back to your teacher. You're not allowed to talk back to your boss. And then to the police officer, to your...
It's a culture. It's a culture.
It's up. It's like the president is our father. He is our leader. He's this. You're not allowed... So basically, it's a system that corrupts authority.
Yeah.
And it makes them untouchable.
Yeah.
And it's very important for these authorities because whether you're a military dictatorship or a religious dictatorship, you need to keep people in check and not asking questions because questions is their biggest enemies. Mm-hmm. So you can't even start by criticizing. You can't even ask the questions because they have nothing else. They have no real achievements. They said like, oh, don't ask about this. It's like if you want to ask about something about religion, that's the way it is. Haram.
It's not a dialogue. It's a monologue.
It's a monologue.
I will tell you what I think the way the country should be run. This is how it's going to be run, and you will do it. As a matter of fact, before I met you, one of the first times I went to Egypt to do a show with the Axis to Evil, they told us at the time, Hosni Mubarak was getting older, and the promoters came to us. And they said, listen, we just got a call from the Ministry of Interior or whatever it was, asking us what material you guys were going to do and if any of it talked about Mubarak. And they said, because recently, I don't know if you remember this, some reporter had written an article in which he said Mubarak is looking like he's getting old.
Yes, and he went to jail.
Went to jail.
Yeah, because of that. The image of authority, it could not be messed with. And that's so basically think about someone who's authority like a drill sergeant. You're not allowed to make fun of him. You're not allowed to talk back to. It is a military hierarchy, and this is why this amazing movie, limited series Chernobyl, when the guy who's playing the role of Gorbachev said like, I've spent like for the past 3 hours I'm spending on the phone, apologizing to our enemies and our friends. It's like our power comes from the perception of power. It's the perception.
Yeah. So that's what power is. Perception.
You're not allowed to mess with this perception.
Sure.
So if you make fun of authority, what there is left? Because you cannot be afraid of something that you make fun of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot be afraid of a joke. Right?
I love the fact that you're here talking about this because I think, especially nowadays whenever I see Trump say, the fake news media. Anytime he gets criticized, he calls it that. Or I hear people defending him like that. I tell them, I go, this reminds me a lot more of Iran. It reminds me a lot more of Egypt. It reminds me a lot more of these dictatorships that don't allow you to make fun of them. And being someone from that part of the world, I feel like I'm you, but I came here 35 years before you. Like in terms of like, I'm seeing myself again because you have the same experience. We had countries that had revolutions and we left, and then we appreciate what we have here. So this happened in Dallas recently. I was doing a show. Things are going great. Doing my kid material. Do some Trump jokes. Show still goes great. Night, thank you, good night. Next day, I get an email from some white lady in Dallas. I was really enjoying the show until you started making fun of our leader. Our leaders are elected. She wrote this. She goes, they deserve our respect the same way that you would expect a child to respect you. You should respect our leader. She said that. Exactly what you just said.
And that goes against everything that is American, because what is more American that you can make fun of
Then
everything?
protest.
Yeah.
Then protest
protest.
and
Yeah.
criticizing the government. I talk about this, especially when it comes to Colin Kaepernick. What Colin Kaepernick did by kneeling is actually the most American of activities.
Yeah.
And by criticizing him for protesting is the least American. Now, I'm not saying I agree with his politics or not. I'm simply saying the action itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the
But here's the difference between Trump and our leaders.
Yeah.
Our leaders have a system that empowers this kind of indoctrination. You cannot talk back. Now, Trump is an elected president in a system that does not approve of this. But Trump himself, all of his life, he was a rich man. He always used to hear, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. He was never challenged.
Yeah.
He was a reality TV star, a rich guy. He was a corporate. He does
was
not.
white.
White dude,
he does
yeah.
not. Well, Clinton was white. It doesn't matter. But even Bush. But
Clinton played the saxophone. He was black.
Yeah.
Remember that?
He's the first black president. But
narration.
here's the thing. He
Yeah.
does not understand here's the difference between what happens in the Middle East and here. He does not understand what does it mean to be a public servant.
right.
Mm-hmm. Serving the public.
Serving the public. He's not. So he's all like, I've been treated unfairly. All those people should respect me. And that white woman who wrote to you, she comes from a culture that, like, any kind of distortion, any kind of subversion, I don't know how to deal with. So I'm sure that I'm sure that in her house, if her kids starting to ask certain question, she will shut them out.
Yeah.
But that happens when we were talking about Persian households. That is a very Persian thing to do, is just to direct an order to your child, and also to teach them not to raise their hand or be to be extra.
Yeah, don't ask questions.
Don't make trouble. Don't worry about it. Just don't let it slide. Don't make trouble with the police. If the police, just bow your head, smile.
Did your parents in your white childhood encourage you to talk back, or were they saying, Kaylin, you listen to your parents?
She went to
and
a
shut up?
liberal art school.
Well, I had almost no parental guidance, but it is a very Christian. That's a very Christian thing too.
Yeah.
And Mormon. My mom was like, in Utah, they do not.
Well, it is
question.
It is. It's a religious thing.
Yeah.
It's a military thing, and you
Yeah,
think about
yeah.
it is hierarchy. It is a one-way street. It's
Down
a one-way
south, it's
direction.
very like that, yes.
Yeah.
It's there. It's like, you respect my authority because I don't want to spend so much time and effort trying to convince you of something that I already take it for granted. So, because that's why they hate questions, because once you start asking questions, now you are going to mess with the foundation of everything that's built on, and that is chaos for them.
So, learning moment again for young people watching this: ask questions. Always ask questions. Now, I'm going to regret saying this because there are times, exactly what you just said, I encourage my kids and my nephew, all of them. I go, you guys have your own, find your passions, do your thing, ask questions. And recently, I was telling the kids that they need to do one sport in particular, and they didn't want to do it. And then they were saying, wait a minute, you just told us to have our own opinion, but you're making us do the sport that you want us to do. And I go, well, at this point, it was one of those, I had the dictatorial moment. I'm like, well, I'm the boss. You will do jiu-jitsu and that's it. But it's funny because you do encourage, but ultimately you got to be ready for them to come at you.
Yeah. It's a very thin line between discipline and trying to give them their own personality. And that's hard.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's parenting.
Yeah.
in a country.
You're right.
He's not our parents.
I say this all the time. The police are not our parents.
Yeah.
They are there to protect and serve and uphold the law. And also in this country, a lot of police officers don't know the law. They only know what they've been told. So there are times where people question a police officer's authority and they get punished for it. And the problem is, if you don't like it, change the law. But this person is acting in accordance and within their rights and the law.
Yeah.
And so don't just say, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then why don't you just tell the police or show the police? Because that is the law. We have this right. We have this.
That's why I want to get back to this lady who wrote, when he said, like, you can't make fun of our leader.
Yeah.
Leader, this is a very Middle Eastern word. Our leader.
Yeah.
Our leader.
I don't know. Nazi Germany had an hour leader.
They
weren't.
Yes, when Nazi Germany was Nazi. But the thing is, now you go, for example, who is the leader of Sweden?
Yeah.
Who is the leader of Finland?
No one knows anything about Sweden or Finland. Let's be honest.
Just group them together.
But he's not a leader. He's like
his name's
the president, the prime minister.
In good Western democracy.
Yeah.
The leader, the president, is a servant.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't get that. This woman doesn't understand that he is a servant.
Yeah, absolutely. And
he
that
works
again
for us.
But that's why, again, I love your perspective, because you're coming from, I feel that a lot of immigrants that come from a worse situation appreciate America a lot more than a lot of Americans, because they have not seen that other side, right?
Not necessarily. They can come here and say, oh, okay, I'm going to get all of the benefits, but I want to turn my house as a replica of my house back home, because I want all of the benefits of this country, but I cannot have chaos in my own home.
But that's how culture is taught. So I also feel that in the Middle East particularly, but also we see this in the Southeast and we see this in Asian countries as well, we see a culture of authoritarian dictatorship. That is what we see culturally. I'm not even speaking politically. I'm simply saying everyone is taught to simply listen, keep their head down and listen. And that is something that's been taught for at least 1,000 years and is very hard to change.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
always
why,
looking for somebody.
That's why it's hard when you go, oh, here you go, now everybody vote.
Here's
and then people
democracy.
are like, I don't want to vote,
Like,
I want my
what?
king, right?
Yeah.
But now,
Or I'm going to vote for something that I know, like religion.
Yeah.
Or the military.
So speaking of which, so just to put us back into where you were, so the first time I met Bassem, like he was just saying, we were there doing another tour, another show, and they said we got this guy who's going to come host the show. Now Bassem had not done stand-up, but he was going to be the host. And we're going out, and at the time we'd done the Axis of Evil, we'd been there a couple times. When we go to Egypt, sometimes we get recognized on the streets, what have you. And they told us this guy, I never met Bassem, very nice guy. They go, he's got his own show, he's a doctor. And I was a little confused. I go, he's got what is he, like Dr. Oz with Dr. Phil? Like, what does he do? I don't know. So every restaurant we go to, people are approaching him. Can I get a picture? And they're like, this guy is very well known. And then you get on stage and you host the show, and the crowd goes nuts and they love him. And we start talking, and I come to realize he's the Jon Stewart of Egypt. But the difference, Jon Stewart is doing his show in America, where we just understood that you can criticize people and make fun of people. You start your show with 30 million people watching. Half of them don't like you. Half of them like
million.
you. 40 million.
Take away that 10 million, that rating.
And at the time, after Mubarak, the Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi comes into power, right? So what starts happening there?
So now, I met you in that year of limbo between the Arab Spring and the first elections. And now, when Morsi, Muslim Brotherhood comes to power, with the rise of of them to power, I had my show getting much bigger, and now I have a theater, I have people coming, and it was just a night that I was making fun of authority every week, like it was a weekly show.
And Muslim Brotherhood, by the way, they were voted in. Nobody accused the election of being rigged.
It was a good election. It was a good election. But here's the thing, again.
The Muslim Brotherhood, they sound evil. I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about them. You know me. I'm very neutral politically.
They're just very religious, right?
But
the Muslim Brotherhood.
But here's the thing. Well, they wanted the part of democracy that just put them in power, but they didn't like the part of democracy that they're made fun of.
Right.
So they would always say, oh, you should be thankful because the revolution made you make fun of the president. Well, like, you should be thankful for the revolution because that put your president in power. They don't understand that it comes with it. They don't. That's why the perfect example is with Stephen Colbert was making fun of George W. Bush in the correspondent. That's classic.
Yeah.
They don't understand that democracy comes with that.
Yeah.
They just want it. It's like, you have to be respectful. I don't have to.
They want democracy for other people that think the way they do.
Yeah.
A lot of people find it that way. And freedom of speech goes the same way. If you don't believe in freedom of speech for the people you disdain, you do not actually believe in the freedom of speech.
Yeah,
Well,
and
it's
many
like-
of them just use democracy as a way to get to power, and then they just like pull up the ladder, and nobody else would come.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
when America said we want the Palestinians to have a free election. They chose Hamas to go, wait, we didn't want that free of an election. We wanted, you chose the wrong guys.
That's happened
Yeah,
before.
that
America
happens
has done
all the
that.
time.
Let's say big shout out to Mossadegh. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it happens where you give someone democracy and then they vote not the way you want them to, and then you go in and take
Then
away
they're
their
like, wait,
democracy.
wait, wait,
We've
wait,
done
wait.
that many times.
And it was kind of a weekly
Panama.
it was a weekly clash between me and authority, and I got and then out of the blues, there's a warrant for my arrest.
Were you not afraid? By the way, like when you said there's a weekly crash, I would be afraid if someone named the Muslim Brotherhood was like, "Hey, you,
Watching my weekly show.
I need you to not talk about me."
Here's what I was worried
A law
about
said.
every single day. I was worried about not doing a good show. That was my fear every day. I was stressing about the show more than the threats outside. Because what was the worst that could happen?
Bro, it's what's the worst that could happen?
They can kill you,
He
right?
slipped on a banana
kill you.
peel
Kill
and
you.
died.
I am gone.
Yeah.
I'm now in the ether space. I'm not there.
If I was your
replaced.
family, I would hate you.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now. What's the worst?
But if
They
I
could
do
kill
the
you.
bad
What
show,
about
I'm
us?
gonna be grilled on Twitter, and that's horrible.
That's true. And also, by the way, if you were to
worse.
be killed, you would have become the Che Guevara. They would have made T-shirts
Right,
with your
right.
head on it.
Yeah.
Bassem Youssef,
Streets would be named after
revolutionary.
you.
And my kids will have the proceeds. But if I do a bad show, there's no coming back from it.
Was it a weekly show or a
fate
daily
worse
show?
It was like mostly like it was John Oliver. It was like an hour and a half
Hour and a half.
weekly.
And who were you finding? Where were you finding writers? Who else had the balls to get in there and do what
There
you're
was
doing?
no. Here's the thing: we created an industry out of nothing because there was nothing called the writers' room in TV shows. So I created a writers' room out of nothing. I was interviewing people fresh out of college, engineers, lawyers, people who didn't never even worked in television before,
But had
And
ideas.
Yes, I didn't care about how talented you were. I cared about how passionate you are, because I am not talented. I'm not a comedian. I couldn't say that I'm the funniest person normally. I'm just a regular guy. But I was a nerd. I was
Right.
passionate about doing this. So
Have you ever seen a nerd? You're tan. You have beautiful eyes, a
full head of
six-pack,
hair.
a chest. I don't think he understands what nerd means.
Here's
Maybe
a
it's
lesson.
Translation.
Back to school. Nerds come in all shapes and
Yes.
sizes.
Is
That's
that what it
true.
is?
Look at this buff nerd with the biceps. He's a handsome nerd.
Anyways,
Go on.
anyway, so I hired people based on passion.
Yeah.
And because I hired people who were in the media, and I fired them after a couple of months because they were just doing business as usual. So we and this is something that we learned. We learned from our mistakes. It was a trial and error every single week, and it was amazing. But then that came with a price, because suddenly now there's a warrant for my arrest, and now I have to go and get interrogated.
What was
by
the charge?
4 charges.
Not funny.
Insulting the president, insulting Islam, spreading false rumors, and disrupting the fabric of society, whatever the fuck that means.
Disrupting
Oh,
the
my.
fabric of society.
And the thing is, like,
Wow.
how fragile is the fabric of society
That
for
you
someone
can
like me to
disrupt it.
disrupt, right?
Hilarious.
And this is the beauty about Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
The accusations are so vague.
Yeah.
And if they're vague, it's very difficult to defend. It's
Yeah.
like, I just think that you are disrupting the fabric of society.
Well, that's what Iran does.
Yeah.
Iran
fabric
will,
of
whenever they
society.
take prisoners, they say you're a spy. And then you go, well, okay, then show the proof. And they're like, well, no, it's very secretive because he's a spy. So we got to fit,
Or it's like an
or
old-
they use stuff like you're offending the morals of society. But
Sure.
What the hell is that?
who is Mr. Society that I can talk to him and understand what his morals that I have just offended?
See if he's offended.
It's very vague. And then I had to go. I have to go to the general prosecutor, kind of like the DA here, or the public prosecutor. And I went there, And I got interrogated for 6 hours. And the first question was, well, in order to verify these accusations, we need to ask you to explain your jokes. I said,
Oh, no.
that's hell.
That's the worst. You know
That's
what?
hell.
That's an insult.
Explain
That's
it.
worse than waterboarding.
Yeah.
We should have a conversation.
and my first
Human rights.
and my first reaction was, is that my torture?
That's torture.
That's another learning moment. Never ask a comedian to explain their joke. If you don't get it, just please move on. Ask somebody else in the audience. Don't
Down.
ask a comedian. It's an insult.
It
That's
is
bad.
and it was a hilarious interview because interrogation because they were basically having
And you were not afraid.
I thought the whole thing was like a farce.
Can we say this is another learning moment?
Go.
Bassem Youssef's an idiot. Listen, he was in this interrogation room with the Muslim brother. Once again.
No, maybe it's
Tehran-
mind over matter. It's like anything can be funny.
Tehran is very afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood, and
Yeah.
yet you look like you would be fit in perfectly well
Yes.
with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Akbar, kill everybody they know.
No, but here's the thing. When you post this video, you'll have a lot of Muslim Brotherhood coming in. It's like, oh, this man, he was used by the military, and he used humor to bring down the first elected presidents. Like, if you use humor,
Yeah.
and humor works to bring down your presidents.
Well, there's no logic because also if they say that you were on the side of bringing down that president, and then the next president we're going to get to
Yeah.
kicks you out, you're like, wait a minute.
No. There's no logic. There's no logic.
But hold on. I have a question about the interrogation. Was there anybody in the room
Yes.
who's coming up going like, by the way, big fan. Can you just sign right here?
Can I say something?
Take a picture,
Can
take
I
a
say
picture.
something?
Yeah.
As I went in,
Yeah.
I went in the courtroom. The police officers were taking selfies with me.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then the people who were working in the office of the general prosecutor started to take selfies. And then out of nowhere, there was supposed to be just me, my lawyer, the interrogator, and a couple of more. There was like 15 people from other office came in, and it's like,
You know what's funny about this?
My son loves you.
Now, because of this, they just got charged. They just got charged
Yeah.
right now because
no,
of
it's
Bassem.
funny because-
allegedly.
The general prosecutor was there, but like he seemed not convinced of the whole thing, but he had to do it because he has got orders that he has to interrogate me.
Well, it's just
Wow.
funny because it shows you that celebrity, no matter where you are, celebrity,
king.
people get excited about it. They're like, even if they don't like you, they're like, I got to get a picture with this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's. I find that really funny because it's almost like it's out of a movie almost.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
someone going like, I'm about to sentence you, but before we do, can I just get a picture selfie?
Yeah.
You know?
It was exactly like that. And the interrogation was 6 hours. I went out on bail. I paid like £15,000 to get out, which at that time was like a couple of $1,000s. And then I came back to my show and I continued the show. But now the turning point is Muslim Brotherhood were becoming so unpopular. They were having like rallies and having the picture of Osama bin Laden in the streets, and they were basically showing like it's us or you, it's us or them. It was kind of a zero sum.
They were
scenario.
they wanted to become basically a religious. They wanted to become like Iran.
And of course, they will never admit that, but they were saying, "All right, you know what? We don't need you guys. We're just gonna be in bed with the military, and we're just gonna overcome you." But the thing is, the military kind of crossed them, and he went to the other side, and people like cheered for the military, including me at the first time, because I was threatened by the Muslim Brotherhood, and that is the bigger mistake because you cheer for the military thinking that the military will give you democracy.
A lot of people
on a silver
I
plate.
think
You
the enemy
remember
of
it's the
their
military.
enemy is their friend,
Yes.
but that's not true.
And-
Sometimes
but-
the enemy of your
but-
enemy
but-
is also your enemy.
Yeah.
But the military came in, and of course they are very popular. Military has been always very popular, very sacred. The army is very sacred, And then they just eliminated every other, not just the Muslim Brotherhood, but even the liberal allies. And now I am faced with a new scenario. I have to do the show, and then there's a very popular, not unpopular very popular military leadership in town, and I had to do the show.
And all along, because in America, we've got networks, right? So if you went on a network
Right.
and you said something that, for whatever reason, the government or somebody came down on, the network president could come over and go, hey, man, you got to stop doing this. Or we have censors that are watching what you're saying. All along, was the network with you? Was there anybody else they were bringing in with you? What were they saying?
under the military, I did one show, one episode, and that was enough for me to get canceled because I made fun of the military. And then I stayed unemployed for 4 months, so I went to another regional network, and then I went there for a few weeks, and then the military also pressured them, and I was banned for good.
So the first time you get banned, does the president of the network come in and go, Bassem, I hate to do this, but you got to go? Or does he come in and go, Bassem, you've crossed the line. I'm on their side.
Or they email you. They just email you.
Even worse.
What?
I knew from television, like everybody else, that I was canceled.
Oh, they announce it on TV.
Yeah.
Holy moly. It's kind of like when James Comey found out he's no longer the FBI director.
Sure.
This is how
He was
this is how
news to
different we
me.
are as people. I'm thinking of DeRozan when the basketball player found out he got traded, and then you go to James Comey.
Well,
That's
James
who we
Comey
are.
was supposedly in a meeting at the
Yes.
FBI building in LA, and someone's like, "Oh, look, you're being canned," and like it was like Trump cans James Comey.
Did anyone?
It was basically me. I recorded my episode after the second episode, after the first one that caused the big trouble, and I was out of the country, and I was just like relaxing, and then my phone started to have like Egyptian number calling him, and then first is my brother, Bassem, what's going on? It's like, what's going on? It's like, we're on television. It's like, your show's not coming and they're canceled. So I already recorded the episode and I gave it to them. The second episode. So the first episode got a lot of trouble because I made fun of the military. I went in to record the second episode, gave it to the network,
unaired Bassem
and
Youssef.
went, and then they said like, all right, and then there was a statement like, we have canceled. Like, so they didn't. Everybody is waiting. At 10 o'clock, everybody is waiting for the show, and then announced like the show is canceled. It's like,
Oh my God! So how
Has
many?
anyone aired? Has anyone aired that second episode?
oh, I leaked it on the YouTube.
Oh, okay.
How many? How many seasons? How many years did you run? How many shows?
3
did you-
years.
3 years. So you did like I don't know, 30, like 40, 50 shows. or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So okay. So first of all, I'm just curious.
Well, the first season was 104 shows, but these were smaller shows. The theater, the big one, these were about 42. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, what do you think was the? Can you give us a flavor of the joke or the type of joke that they were like, that's too far? What did you say?
No, for the military.
Yeah.
No, it just making fun of the fact that was this a military coup or a revolution? Just asking this was enough.
Wow.
Just asking, but we also asked in a different, in a funny way. We kind of had a whole scenario, the whole idea of we had this character that we called it the crowds, and the crowds in Egyptian called Gamahir, which is actually a feminine name. So she's kind of like an older, sexy woman, and that is Egypt. And we had this a recurring character talking about how the Islamist leader is basically abusing her, but she likes it, but that she doesn't want him anymore. And then we brought this back character,
That's funny.
and now the character, the one who's abusing her, is her cousin, the officer, the military officer.
Oh, boy.
And it was kind of like it was a lot of section in the windows and stuff, and
Yeah.
that was enough. And it's like, oh, so Egypt is a whore?
Oh God!
But you like the same character when the Islamist was there. It's like,
Yeah.
not anymore, it's the military now.
Oh my God!
Were there people against you as well? Were people mad that you made fun of them since the military seemed to be so popular?
People from my own family and friends, so that I know for 20 years. But some of my family members like disown me basically. And
Wow.
boycotting me.
God.
Seriously, yeah.
Were there anyone on the side that are for example, I see this happen where they think that you are also in the conspiracy with them.
Oh, yeah.
Where even though you're talking against them, someone's like, they paid you to talk against them so that they
So-
can.
they
I'll
can
give you an
come down on you.
example. So there's some people who like basically loved me during the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, I'm the hero against the Muslim. And then when I started making like fun of the military, it's like, oh, this thing that he was doing with the Muslim Brotherhood, that was fake, that was staged. He was basically in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood all the time, and we ate it up. It's like, so they
Crazy
switch.
to me.
Yeah.
They do that. First of all, a couple of things. Again, another learning moment, which is sometimes when you stick to your guns, you're going to lose friends and family. But you got to do if it's part of who you are, it's part of who you are. Like you can't change your mind because your cousin Gamal says, Bassem, you need to change.
I agree, and that's why I wear the bathrobe.
No,
No, but also,
No,
also
but even my mom, my late mother, was very upset because the military was very sacred, and she was very upset that I would actually stand against the military.
Wow.
So you're talking about like very. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about a distant cousin.
yeah.
And it was hard. It was very hard, and eventually I had to leave the country.
Because they threatened you. What was it?
So basically, remember the first network that canceled me?
Yeah.
So we went into court as I was doing the other regional channel, and then the case dragged, and then I was canceled for the second time.
Why did you go to court though? What was the point?
You have to go to court because in the contract there was like an arbitration clause. So you have to do it in order to be able to free myself to go to the other network.
Right.
So now the second network is pressured to cancel me. They were nicer. The second network like, well, we're sorry, Bassem, we got orders, we're done. And now the case is continuing. And then one day, 11th of November, 2014, my lawyer called me and said, Bassem, we lost the case. Like, what? What do you mean we lost the case? They canceled me. It's like, it's a political verdict. Now, you're actually being fined by 100 million pounds, which is at that time $15 million, and you need to pay to the network. It's like, I don't have that kind of money. It's like, we know. That's what they're going to use it in order to either put you in jail, put you on a no-fly list, or confiscate your belongings.
Wow.
So what the fuck I'm going to do? It's like, well, we booked a flight for you. You need to leave Egypt now. In 2 hours, I was out of the country.
Holy, wow.
No, the verdict was at 5 p.m. I was on the plane. I was gone.
Wow. That is
my
crazy. Listen, your situation is very different than most people, but it does go to this whole thing of people fleeing situations like that, whether it's Central America, whether it's Middle East or what have you. People, these things happen. I mean, they're not like that, but there's people who are in a war zone, people that are, get a call and say your kid's being pursued by a gang, you got to go. But you experienced that.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what do? You go home, you just pack up whatever, a bunch of suitcases?
I went in exactly 2 suitcases and I left.
And what about your family, your wife and
They
kids?
had to stay behind. They didn't have time. I was hoping that they can catch up with me and they would not bother them as they go out. And thank God that happened, but that took like a few months. So I didn't come to America right away. I went to Dubai because I had residency there. And now the rule of the game was, if you want to stay in the Middle East, you can't speak politics, but here are all of the offers that we're going to give you to make useless, mindless comedy shows. So why don't you do stuff with celebrities? Why don't you do stuff that is like prank shows? Why don't you do game shows?
In Dubai
And Lebanon, and the money was incredible. The offers were like in the million, and not just that. The people from the intelligence in Egypt came and started to connect me. It's like, why don't you come back? All bygones, and here are a bunch of money. Do your show, but we're gonna be a kind of an understanding.
Wow.
And I said, like, basically, you're gonna be makeup on the face of the regime. So like, I cannot do that. I decided to leave the whole Middle East and come to America and start from scratch.
And did you have to go to the embassy and say, I need political asylum? What happened there?
No, I was lucky. Because in 2012, I remember I received the honor of being one of the Time 100 most influential people.
Yes.
H1N1. What did you get?
So I got the green card for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
you
they
have
give
to
you
get.
skill.
You have to be.
Wow.
You have to be one of the Time 100
Time 100
people to get a
necessarily
visa.
entry into this country.
You don't have to. But let's say that kind of pushed my application to be
Yeah.
on
That's
a
the
green
thing.
card.
If you have a skill, America United States takes that into consideration.
Of course.
And gives you, and which is why there's such a brain drain from India and places like Iran.
Yeah.
People want to leave and they have exceptional talent
Yeah.
in tech. If you're an athlete,
If America sees a talent, they come you and give you the chance to pay taxes here.
100%. They do. Or if you have money, you can just come here, invest, and they will also give you a green card.
So at that time, I had the green card. So I said, like, you know what? Time to use that green card. And I just moved, but I had nothing. I had no connections, nothing. And I didn't know what to do. There was like a period of my life where I didn't know what I'm going to get, how am I going to get money, where is going to be my income, and started to reinvent myself now for the third or fourth time to be a performer in a foreign language, to do comedy in a foreign language. And out of everybody, you guys know how difficult it is to do comedy, especially stand-up comedy, in a language that's not yours.
Yeah, of course.
That's a third language.
Yeah.
You can even act in a foreign language, but to do stand-up comedy in English, and I failed so many times, and I bombed so many times in many clubs, in order to try because I had to do something. You need to survive, and I couldn't. I didn't want. It was been 7 years since I opened somebody's chest, and I didn't want to go and start from the beginning. So I said, look, that it's going to be comedy, it's going to be politics. I'm going to continue doing that.
So again, learning moment before we go any further is sometimes you got to redefine yourself and don't be afraid. And sometimes you got to be sympathetic to people. Be sympathetic to immigrants, people coming from other parts of the world. They were professors, they were doctors, they were heart surgeons, and they come here and they got to start again. They got to go do open mics.
100%. I see. We had this one janitor at my high school, and I was like, I know this guy was a general in El Salvador or something, and now he's just, and the way his mustache looked, and he was cleaning, and it's like pinch, like he just hated. But you could tell in his former life, this was somebody.
Be respectful. That's one of the things that pisses me off when people go like, "You're privileged to be here in our country, goddamn it." I go, "You son of a," I go, "You motherfucker." I go, "This person spent their whole life saving people, going through revolution, doing all this stuff, and now you're like talking shit to them just because you were lucky enough to be born in this country because you got no fucking talent."
So here's the thing. Like I was doing a show in a place like there's a few conservative people were there, Trump hat and everything, and I was making the show, and then a kind of what would look like a Trump supporter started heckling me. I was like, "You came here, like you making fun of her. You do not deserve to be an American. You came here to this country." I said, wait. And I stopped the show and I said, "Do you think that I'm here on asylum?" And I said, "I'm not. Do you think I come here as a refugee? I have a green card because I have a special talent. So your government thought that I'm a great addition to the society. I'm here on a VIP pass. You, on the other side, the only reason that you have an American passport is that your great-grandfather fucked your great-grandmother on the right continent."
That's it. What did the guy say?
True. Call Time Magazine.
That's the truth, man.
Yeah. And that guy was President Trump. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's amazing because you came here.
Did I say the F word?
It's okay. That's fine. But you came here and you, because I know that you also ended up teaching at Harvard for a little bit, right?
Yeah, that was kind of like, it was, I was a visiting fellow at Harvard, and that was okay, a good transition. Great, it was great experience. But again, that was not enough to, because these are like temporary posts, like you do there for a semester.
Yeah.
So I started to do speaking engagement, and then I started to change this engagement and speaking into stand-up. And this summer, I'm very happy. I was privileged to be chosen by the Sundance Institute at their theater lab. So now I'm changing my stand-up into a theatrical piece.
Oh, nice.
And that, again, that's a transformation because theater is something different. So I'm happy that like at least I am surviving, and I'm trying to make ends meet. There's a few projects that I'm doing, and everybody in Hollywood is hustling, right? Whether you hustle, everybody in Hollywood is having a script. I'm having a project.
Well,
so I'm joining the hustle.
Well, what's crazy is because, again, a lot of people from the outside look in. Like, I get emails from people on Instagram sometimes. They're like, "I'm in Iran and I have a script. Can you make a movie out of my script?" And I'm like, "Dude, I can't make a movie out of my own script."
Yeah.
Because what it is you're a big fish over there, and then you come over here and you're like, "Oh my God, nobody knows me."
Yeah.
And I got to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And you get a meeting, but then people go, "Okay, great. We'll call you when we need a blue-eyed Egyptian dude."
Exactly. Executives, like I met with all of executive, all the next. "Oh my God, you have an amazing story. It's an honor to be with you in the same room." It's like, I don't want your honor. I want your contract check. I want your check.
Yeah.
And it's and because we're different, so it's like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting, but we don't know what to do with you."
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
So there's a lot of that, and again, I'm sure that everyone on this table is having like 5 different prospects, and they're waiting for the big break, right?
Yeah.
We're waiting for this script to be chosen, this show to be accepted.
Actually, Maz Jobrani has a movie he made called Jimmy Vestfood.
I know.
And I was in it for
I love it.
0.7 seconds.
And I love this movie.
So thank you.
I haven't seen you.
Yeah.
I was the DJ in the wedding scene. Very important. If
No lines. We didn't have money to pay him.
No lines.
But they cut to my face. They cut to my face.
Yes. So wait a minute. So now you are touring, but do you still have are you still in? What's going on in Egypt now? Like, because I mean, I know a lot of people when the revolution happened in 2011, right? People were hopeful, everything was great. And I used to do a joke on stage whenever there'd be an Egyptian in the audience. I'd be like, "You guys should have called the Iranians first. We could have told you this shit don't work out." So, what's going on in Egypt now? And are you involved like with commentary or anything?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah.
It is basically.
Why?
Well, here's the thing. I still have family there, brother and stuff, and I think that like shouting in the media, it will just make them more agitated, and it will just hurt other people that have absolutely no role in any game. There will be just I'm just going to hurt other people by just speaking. It's just think of a North Korean person who looks at his country just like maybe see you in 10 years, see how that plays out. But honestly, I am now focused more on my career here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this is any betrayal of what's happening in Egypt, because I paid my dues many times over, and and every time I speak up, somebody gets hurt.
Right.
So there's no point. People know what's happening is not ideal and it's not good, and it doesn't matter because he has the regime is having the backing of many regional governments of the United States itself. So
right now it's basically a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because what you just said too is that you go, as the clown in the room, you go, I want to make fun of this guy. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. And then a lot of people that are in control go, well, we're doing business with this guy, and it's good. It's kind of like when Trump says like, well, the Saudis just bought $100 billion.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right. And you're, as the clown, you're like, but look at this. And he's like, no, I'm not going to look at that.
It doesn't matter because there are much bigger interest than you.
Yeah.
A much more important interest than you. It's like, yeah. The freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. I need $110 billion.
It's interesting because I think we have the instinct, and I don't know if you had this as a kid. I know that reflecting now, my son's now 11. And I was telling my wife, I remember when I was around 11, 12 years old, I would get in trouble a little bit in school. And the reason was I couldn't help myself. I had to make fun of the teacher. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't mean. The teacher would do something and I would just have to call it out. It just was part of me. Mm-hmm. And so your instinct is to call it out. But sometimes you get to a point where, like you said, you go, no, it's just not working. Like, I'm trying to call it out, but it's beyond my, the government saying, you're now away from there. It could cause other people trouble. So then do you then turn that around, and are you now making commentary about American politics?
So here's it. Now, I give it a lot of thought, and this is like what happens when a lot of people from our part of the world come here. They still live there.
Wow.
Right?
That's a good...
They still live there.
Yeah.
I said, like, from the get-go, listen, I'm a resident of this country, hopefully soon to become citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually more affected by the politics of this country than what happens back there. I care about what would happen to my children who are in this country. So now I use my comedy in order to talk about stuff that we all talk about, about like discrimination, racism, politics, and whatever, because this should be our contribution in a place like this. I want to deal with this as a resident, as a future citizen of America, because for a very, very long time, especially people from the Middle East, from the Arab world, not from Iran, we have not been involved in the politics. We have this immigrant mentality that, like, we're here, we're working, but we want to go back there. We're so involved the day-to-day, instead of being involved in the day-to-day here that affects you, right? So I said, like, I made the conscious decision to be much more involved with what's happening here. So my comedy reflects that. Of course, it has part about my story in Egypt, but also it has to do with what's happening here.
It's interesting you say that, because there are Iranians like that, and there's Cubans like that, and there's a lot of people that come over here and they keep saying, hey, get rid of this government so we can go back. And part of what you just said is true, because I get criticized sometimes. I get people on Twitter and stuff, why aren't you criticizing the interior minister of Iran? I go, my mind isn't on the interior minister of Iran. I will tell you, I'll make a blank statement. It's an oppressive government. They are oppressive of women, of gays, of Baha'is. There's a lot of stuff that I can criticize them on. And when specific things happen in the public view, I can talk about it. Like if for example, in Egypt they were to take some bunch of journalists and throw them in jail, and it makes headlines all over the world, you can make a commentary and go, "This is not good." Okay, but what you just said is totally true. It's like we live here. We can't keep that 1 foot over there because ultimately, then that stops you from participating over here. And also, I think a lot of times, people from our parts of the world come here and they don't want to rock the boat, so they just sit there and they go exactly what we just said at the beginning of the whole show. I got to respect this leader, but I go, no, this is a different country. The whole point of this country is to make fun of your leader, is to protest and look at multiple issues, right? I mean, a lot of our people will sit there and go, well, what is his relationship with my home country? That's the number one thing I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Your home country and the relationship they have is such, but what about, like, what are they doing to migrants? What are they doing to immigrants? What are they doing to the climate?
What do health care? What are they doing to
Healthcare.
school and education? This is stuff that affects you on day to day here.
Yeah.
Day to day.
And I believe that if we become influential in the political discourse here, we can eventually change their politics towards our country.
Yeah.
But we need to be relatable here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you as a comedian, of course you love people coming from around and watch you, but you also want people, white people, coming and see you.
Yeah.
You want people, black people, white people, Dominican, Cuban, whatever, coming to your show because you want to be relatable to everybody. You don't want to be the guy with the inside joke all the time.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because I get that a lot. I get people from my own culture will come now, and they'll sometimes, because a lot of my material now is about my kids, and it's about just things that if you're a parent you can relate to, or I'm making jokes about current event political stuff, and I'll get some people from the community come up afterwards. Why you don't do more jokes about the Persian pistachios?
Why was that guy Russian though? Can we talk about
why
that?
you don't do?
I'm
jokes?
having people. Sometimes I have people like, why do you do it in English? Why don't you just go back in Arabic? We're used to you this way. It's like, well, that's a different person now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've grown as a person. You're now here. You have a green card.
Time 100.
And you have this. Tell us a little bit about this vegan show. You have a show. What's it called?
Plant B.
Plant B.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
It's about getting abortions for vegans. It's actually very good.
Tell us about this a little bit. What is Plant B?
Well, it is the only bilingual show about to teach people how the things about the science and the background of plant-based diet. And the reason that I've been vegan for 6 years, but I'm not.
Welcome to America.
But I've been vegan since I was in Egypt, not here.
Oh, okay.
So I always say yes, I'm an Arab and vegan, which makes me scary and annoying. And but I'm not that kind of an annoying vegan. I am actually, when I talk to people to turn to plant-based, I tell them to do that in order to prevent and reverse chronic diseases, because I'm a big believer scientifically and medically that plant-based diet can actually prevent and reverse many of the chronic diseases that we see right now: autoimmune diseases, heart disease, diabetes.
Scientifically and
medically.
Are you a doctor? Oh, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
What's a good book? So your show's a bilingual show, right?
Yeah.
So it's English.
It's in English and Arabic, and when I speak Arabic, there's subtitles in English,
great.
and vice versa.
So then watch your show.
So and the website plantb.tv has all of the resources. Any question that you have about protein, B12, omega, calcium, everything, it's there. And the reason that I did that is that I have had a personal experience. I had a friend of mine who had MS, multiple sclerosis, and as a doctor, you see MS, it's like, this guy is a goner. He's done.
That's real.
He reversed his disease using plant-based. And then when I looked into it, I found hundreds and thousands of people reversing rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, all kind of connective tissue disease.
What about lupus?
How about baldness?
Lupus.
How about baldness?
And lupus.
Can I grow my hair back
No.
if I? Damn it!
Whoa! You can't cure baldness?
Not with plant-based.
What's your favorite vegan food? Like if you wanted to convert me to veganism, what would be your number one thing that you would?
I would take you to a restaurant.
Real Food Daily?
In Culver City.
Okay.
It's called Sage.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
Okay.
Sage. I've heard of Sage.
Yeah,
gotta go to Sage.
followed by Cafe Gratitude.
Oh yeah.
Love
These are my top two, but Sage is
Yeah?
great. Yeah.
Crossroads.
Crossroads
They're
is
speaking white right now. They're speaking white.
yeah.
Crossroads
Excuse me, let me
jumped in.
just.
is
This is my part of the show. Thank you so much.
It's overpriced and it has very small portions. So
That's
no.
true. Fair,
no.
okay, fair enough.
No.
LaCroix? No. This is white. This is white talk.
I like how Maz golf.
Golf. Polos.
Kale.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes,
Something.
no, but like it is. I tell, but I'm also, again, I'm not militant. So somebody will say, I gave up everything, but I couldn't give up fish. Like, fine, any change is good. So, but I can't do it. I need to start somewhere. It's like, all right, give up dairy, just dairy, and from I'm more because for 40 years of my life I was not vegan.
Yeah.
So I don't go and shame people for what they eat. And I said, like, listen, do whatever you can. But if you want better results, you go more plant-based. And I coach people, and it's very hard. And I think giving up cigarettes, giving up, political convictions are easier than giving up the food that you like. It is something that you have a relation with 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Comfort.
Plant B on YouTube. We're going to check that out. And then your
Love
book,
it.
Revolution for Dummies, is that about Egypt, or is that just revolutions in general?
It is my story, and it's basically telling people about like what happened to me there, and basically how I transitioned to America. It's a fun read.
Okay, so the way people find you is they find Revolution for Dummies is a book.
Yes.
You got Plant B on YouTube, and you're touring.
Yes, I'm touring. I have a show in Vancouver, 18th of September, and I have 4 shows in Cobb's Comedy Club. I'm
San
sure that you
Francisco.
played in San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah.
10 and 11th of October, and then I'm going to the Stress Factory in November.
Do you have a website, or how do people find? I know on Twitter you have like 5 million followers or something.
11.
11 million.
Oh.
And is it?
You need
You're
to stop short.
lowballing.
Sorry. Yeah,
What's
you
going
keep
on?
I haven't-
lowballing them.
Let me ask you a question. So when you have 11 million people, do you on a daily basis when you go on there, do you get like love you, hate you, love you, hate you?
No, I just put something and I don't look to the comments.
Don't look to the comments, bro.
Great. Sage
Learning moment. Don't look at the comments.
Yes, I think I'm more active on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram, Bassem Youssef, and I follow you. And I have a question for you.
Before you do that,
No,
I
no,
want to
no.
just spell. I want to spell Bassem Youssef. He said it like Americans are gonna be like, oh, no big deal. BASSEMYOUSSEF.
Yeah, Bassem Youssef. And my question for you for Instagram.
Yes.
Dude, whenever you go and have like a show somewhere,
Uh-huh.
who is doing your Photoshop thing? Like it's like I'm gonna be in Arkansas. I
yeah,
love what you
yeah,
do. Like
yeah.
you put your head.
Yeah.
Do you do it yourself or you?
No, I got a guy.
He's got a guy. He's got a guy. Listen, he's got a guy.
No, every comedian gets a guy
You gotta have
to
a guy.
like do a
gotta
funny, because then the key becomes like some cities are easier. Like you'll be like, oh, New York, okay, we'll do the Statue of Liberty. But then you go like, I don't know, Charlotte. We're like, what is Charlotte
Akron,
known
Ohio.
for? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like,
I love it when you put your head on like a cheerleader.
Oh, that's
like
the best.
That's in Texas or that's somewhere in Texas.
The Cowboys, yeah,
the
Dallas.
Cowboys.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
I'll
that
introduce
is-
you if you want the guy.
I want a guy. I want to have
You
a
need a
guy.
guy or
I have
a lady.
Yeah.
Or a lady.
Or a lady.
A guy is
Yeah,
actually
but
gender
you-
neutral, and the fact that you didn't know
No,
that
I agree with you,
means
actually.
you're not as white as you thought.
Even
you were.
Eilish, what's her name?
true.
Eilish Bailey? Bailey?
Billie
What's her name?
Eilish.
Billie
Billie
Eilish.
Eilish.
I'm the
Billie
bad
Eilish.
guy.
Duh. Duh.
Just won the album of the year or the song
Yes.
of the year.
And
or
she's going to be on SNL.
MTV
Is she?
Awards.
There you go. Well, listen, man. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
my honor.
Find Bassem at Bassem Youssef, BASSEMYOUSSEF.
long.
Go see him in Vancouver at Cobb's. Don't wear your "Make America Great Again" hats because it's just
Or wear
annoying.
it.
No, it's annoying.
Or
Don't wear it. No, don't wear it.
I don't like when people
No,
say that.
no, you wear it at Tehran shows,
Go to
not at
Tehran show
Bassem shows, and not at my shows because it's an ugly hat. Can we just at least design
Fire.
a nice hat?
Love the hat.
Oh my God! Listen, Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
I hope people learned a little bit here about Egypt, about immigrating, about following your passion, about sometimes you could be a doctor, make your parents proud, and then turn around and be a comedian.
And ruin their lives.
You can do both.
Their lives.
Yes.
That's been another episode with Bassem Youssef. Thank you, Bassem. Thank you for coming on Back to School with Maz Jobrani.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back to school. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Back to School with Maz Jobrani. We hope you're enjoying it. We hope you're having fun. And we hope you're learning something. So make sure to let your friends know. Share it on iTunes. Share the clips from YouTube. Just get it out there. However you're listening, let your friends know to tune in to Back to School with Maz Jobrani.
Back to school. Yeah.